Lee, and a very, very warm welcome to the lovely Lee Roebeck, who I have known for a number of years now. I've worked with him for a number of years, and he is a life-transforming person. And today we are talking all about how to overcome imposter syndrome as a property investor, or it might be as property investing, whichever way you want to look at it. And I can't imagine that there's anyone out there who will say they haven't had a small amount of imposter syndrome. So yeah, let's jump straight in. So welcome, Lee. Thank you so much for being here today. For anyone who hasn't heard of you, I wonder if you wouldn't mind giving a sort of an introduction to yourself. That would be fabulous.
Sure, Emma. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from around the world. So I'm a mindset coach. I'm from Johannesburg, South Africa. I've been working in this industry since around 2014. I help entrepreneurs all around the world to remove money blocks and attract clients easily. And Emma's been one of them on the journey with me. And yeah, it's that's basically what I do. I'm affiliated with the Proctor Gallagher Institute from Canada. And I was working with Bob Proctor for the last 5-6 years of his life. So that's a bit about me, Emma.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So just one final thing that I heard somebody on a video say this morning, which I thought was a really good idea. If you have any kind of light bulb moments or any kind of epiphanies, please do comment live, or if you're watching this afterwards, please do write a comment, because it's really useful for us as well to see how people interact, what they benefit from this, so we can give you more valuable content in the future. So yeah, any epiphanies, let us know, and if you've got any questions, do write them in, and we can actually address them here as well. Okay, so let's jump straight in, Lee. I mean, imposter syndrome, what exactly is it?
So the way I see imposter syndrome is just basically you not seen. I mean, this is a common topic right now all around the world, right, Emma? People talking about imposter syndrome. It's when you don't see yourself the way other people see you, or you don't perceive yourself. Your inner identity of yourself is different to what's happening on the outside, or the results on the outside. So, you might have a bit of a breakthrough, or your results improve a little bit, but then that little voice inside comes and it says, you're not that person, or, who do you think you are? You're never going to do that. It's all these, this negative self-talk that really limits one. And I think at all of us at some point in our life, we were there, where we felt a bit like an imposter. And, on your property journey, on your business journey, in life, in your professional career, that can really hurt you if you don't have an edifying voice or an uplifting voice from inside, if you don't see yourself in a good light. So that's my understanding about it, Emma.
I mean, I found this a really incredible sort of topic, and especially in the sort of, for me, in the property world, because I'm relatively new into it. So I've had a history of business in the UK and abroad, and seen a lot of things, and lived through a lot of things, and seen a lot of bosses who I just think, wow, how can you have so much balls to go and do that? And you kind of look at these people and think, wow, you've got some self-confidence in there. And then sometimes you might compare that to yourself and think, well, why am I not sort of pushing on and doing that? And certainly for me, in the property, I'm relatively new to it. So there have definitely been times where I've kind of been like, oh, I can't do that, or I haven't done that. And then suddenly the support and the proof is coming from other people. Like they'll say, wow, you're doing really well. And you'll kind of look at them and think, really? Where is that from? Because in your own mind, it might be, okay, I've got, I don't know, let's say I've got 10 properties. But and it's not necessarily even a comparison. Sometimes it's a comparison because it might be, oh, well, somebody else, you know, Jeff's got 15 or whatever. But there's something in there that makes you kind of go, well, the facts in my head are saying this, and that is telling me that I'm not the person that this person who's giving me positive feedback is there. So it's kind of like understanding where we are in our mind and the facts that we see compared to the facts that others see. And that's been a really kind of huge one for me. And even recently, actually, I've been sort of thinking about, you know, I mentor and I help people with their getting on board with rent to rent and service accommodation and all of those kind of things. And even then I'll have the odd moment and I'm like, oh, I haven't, you know, maybe I haven't got enough experience. And then I'm like, I developed an entire hotel. I built up a business. I sold that business. I won numerous awards, not one, not two, but numerous awards for these things. What is wrong with you? But is there some, you know, particular thing why it is for us the facts that we see are different to the facts that other people see?
So the root cause of that imposter syndrome, or how you see your self-image, is a concept called self-image. And when you were a little girl, Emma, as you know, you came into the world, your subconscious mind was wide open. Now your self-image, your concept of self, lives in the subconscious mind. Your mind is wide open, and your parents feed you certain ideas about yourself. They say certain things, or the environment is playing out in a specific way. You know, your teachers tell you you're smart, or you'll never amount to anything, or you're always in trouble. You know, whatever it is, the ideas that you were fed. You're not beautiful, or you are beautiful, you're good looking, whatever it is, all those ideas were fed into the subconscious mind. And here in our little life, the self-image, or the concept of self, was created back then. So here you are at 40, 50, 60. And the truth is, those voices are still playing in your head. You might not be hearing them audibly, but the ideas that other people planted in your mind, or even some, yourself to a certain degree, the ideas you've planted in your mind, it's literally speaking to you, because that's the image or concept you have of yourself. And until you upgrade that, I promise you, you're going to have a tough time. Like on your property journey, if you're in the property game, in your journey, you have to upgrade your concept of self. You have to create the image internally of the man or woman who has achieved your property goal. Maybe do you mind if I explain this a bit deeper, Emma?
No, please do. It's a incredible concept. So I'd love a reminder.
So, and maybe a suggestion. I didn't come right to stream it on Instagram. Maybe a suggestion, if you can get us back in landscape while I get this book. Maxwell Maltz. Where is that book?
I can't turn it back while we're live.
So here's where the concept of self-image actually came from. So this is the book Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. And this book was published in 1960, and it's been a personal development bestseller of note. Like, it's really one of the top books. And it's a strange name, right? Psycho-Cybernetics. I didn't understand what that meant when I heard about the title initially. But psyche is basically the Greek word for mind, and cybernetics is the science of control and communication in the animal and in some machine. Now, basically, what this author Maxwell Maltz was saying is that in your mind you've got a control mechanism. This cybernetic mechanism, you've got a control mechanism. And like I said earlier, he wasn't a speaker or a personal development coach or trainer or anything like that. He was actually a plastic surgeon. And during his his work or his experience with regards to his work, someone would come in with a bad scar on their face, or wanting to fix up their nose or do something to their face. He'd go ahead and he'd fix the problem. And he noticed with some people there was a marked change in how they showed up thereafter. There was a marked difference in their confidence, in how they showed up in the outside world. And then with some other people, regardless of how successful the operation, how successful his work was, there was no exterior change. And this led Dr. Maltz to postulate that we've got two images. You've got the image that comes back from the mirror. That's the way you dress, the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you meet and greet other people. And then you've got this image on the inside, the self-concept, the self-image, which affects your confidence, it affects your self-esteem. It affects that feeling of imposter syndrome. It really creates that idea. If your image internally is inferior to what's happening on the outside. And towards the end of the call, I'll give you, let me give you the example now. Good example of this, like a really good example, is Michael Jackson. Like Emma, that's a really good example. Like his genius, his creative genius made him a superstar. But he didn't see himself like that. I mean, if you read into his history or his story, his dad told him, you've got a big nose, and his dad, just belittled him and really created this poor image of this young boy. And here he grows into the superstar in this place, and he literally self-destructs. He literally self-destructs in terms of what he was doing. I mean, anybody to do that to your body, to your physical body, I mean, there's got to be something deeply misplaced or deeply amiss within you to do something like that. And that's how it plays out, because what happens is the self-image is like a cybernetic mechanism. I'll explain how this works, but it basically is almost auto-correcting you all the time to the image. In the work I do, in the mindset work, we keep saying that you cannot outperform your self-image. You might break out for a week or two, but if your self-image is not of the man or woman that you want to be, or the man or woman that's on your goal card, if you carry a goal card, or if you have a big goal, that goal, if you don't have the self-image of that person, I promise you're going to sabotage yourself, because you cannot outperform your self-image. But a really good example is Michael Jackson. I know I'm going off on a bit of a tirade here, Emma, but we got to understand how this works. Like, it's really such an interesting concept. Can I just
jump in there, because it's so key, and it immediately reminded me. I'm currently reading the book, I don't know if you've read it, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, and that's exactly one of the things. He lists a whole host of people that I'd never really thought it before, but have got to the absolute pinnacle of being really successful, and then just done the most ridiculous thing, and it completely kind of has messed up everything that had got them there. And the way he explains it is exactly how you've explained it, is that they get there and they may be physically there. I mean, this is how I kind of see it. They may be physically there, but internally they're not there. So they'll just do things to just knock themselves back down. And actually, when you were talking about, you might be able to do it for a week or two, and you might have this real enthusiasm. I'm just thinking of a few new things that I'm doing at the moment. I have this real enthusiasm, and then suddenly it's kind of like you're not necessarily seeing the success, or whatever that is, along in the timescales that you're wanting. So then you start doubting yourself, and it's like, oh, and I can so see it, and it is this kind of constant. And I know we've been through it before, haven't we? But this kind of battle. And you have to fight to get through it. And you do have we call it the black dog that's just there on my shoulder, saying all these crazy things sometimes. And you've just got to.
here's the thing, Emma, if you fight in it, I promise you it's going to win every time. I promise you it's going to win. I mean, I just said you cannot outperform your self image. It's going to win out every time. But here's the beauty, you might not have created that self image. You might not be responsible for it. But the thing is, you can upgrade it with the right direction, with the right mentorship, and somebody holding your hand. You can upgrade it. It's actually it's a pretty simple process to upgrade it. Like, it's really a simple process. It requires work and a bit of effort, yes, but it's not rocket science. Like, it can be upgraded in a very easy way with the right instruction. Um, I just wanted to comment in terms of how this self-image in your subconscious, this cybernetic mechanism works. So, an a thermostat in an air conditioning system, you might set that or the temperature to 23 degrees Celsius. You know, up there in the north where you at, right, Emma, it gets really cold winter time. Um, around about now, right? So
Very rainy as well, cold and rainy.
so you set the, I mean, and I know you guys all have your homes are heated, right? And you set the temperature to 23 degrees Celsius. Your wife or your husband leaves the door open, gust of cold air blows in because it's the middle of winter. You're sitting in the office, and the next minute you feel this chill. And you get up to see where the breeze is coming from, and you see the front door was left open. And the temperature in the room drops down to, let's say, 17 or 16 degrees, but you close the front door. The thermostat in that air conditioning system in your home picks up the deviation from the set point that you've set, which was 23 degrees. And it picks up that deviation, it fires up the furnace and the fan, and it blows warm air into the home or into that room. And what happens, steadily the temperature will rise and it will come back up to 23 degrees. Now, the thermostat in that air conditioner, that is a cybernetic mechanism. It is the control of communication in the animal or in some machine. So that aircon's a machine, and it's this control mechanism. Another example, before I link it back to your self-image and this imposter syndrome, you could hop on a plane at Heathrow, and let's say you flying over to Logan International in Boston, and you flying over the Atlantic, and somewhere over there you hit some turbulence, and the plane is taken off track. The automatic pilot, and those pilots could be sleeping. They everything's set in when they leave Heathrow. They could be sleeping when that turbulence hits. And the automatic pilot will automatically pick up that deviation from the set point, Logan International, to change the thrust and the flaps on the plane and bring it right back on track. And eventually you're going to land at Logan International. That all happened automatically. That automatic pilot is a cybernetic mechanism. Now, this self-image of yours, this concept of self, it works exactly the same. It's this idea of how you see yourself. You might have, like we've been talking about, you might have that breakout week, or where your results improve for a couple of weeks. But the cybernetic mechanism, your self-image, will pick up that deviation from the set goal. Like, you don't see yourself like that. And that's where the self-sabotage starts coming in, and it will start correcting, and eventually you will come back down to where you were. Because, I mean, imagine that voice that's talking to you all day. It's basically running the show. In the mindset work that you're familiar with, Emma, and that I do, we refer to this as the paradigm. It's this habitual way of being. It's this pattern that's programmed into us. And your self-image is part of that paradigm, and you have to upgrade it if you really want to improve your results. Because here's the thing, I think you said earlier, Emma, it's like you got to constantly be fighting this little black dog, this little voice on your shoulder. Here's the thing, What if that voice on your shoulder was edifying? What if it was talking you into everything? Because if it's talking you out of what you want, that is a clear sign that your self-image is not where it should be. It's a clear sign your self-image is not where it should be, because that voice can become, the overriding voice can become a positive, affirmative, and uplifting, and basically speaking you into doing the crazy thing that's going to get you where you want. But the thing is, it can be easy and effortless when we go to the root cause of the results, which is what's happening in the subconscious. And then it could become easy and effortless. Like, I've had moments, and I'll tell you a story later on, Emma. I've had moments in my experience with this work where I've had such crazy results. Like the one year I done my entire annual income, the previous year's annual income, in 1 month during the pandemic, in the toughest economic climates. And it felt so easy and so effortless. I mean, there was work involved, right? But even the work felt aligned. It felt easy. It felt effortless. But that's because I went to the root cause. I was really, when we were confined to our homes during the pandemic, I was really working on my mindset, and I was going to the root cause. And that's how the results sped up. If we trying to just work on the outside, change behavior, it's this constant struggle. Go to the inside, go to the root cause of what's creating your behavior, the self-image, which is creating how you show up, this imposter syndrome. Go to that and upgrade that, and then watch everything on the outside start shifting.
Amazing. Amazing. I love that. What would you say to people who talk about actually leveraging, for instance, this inner critic as a tool for growth? Is that something that you would do? Would you give it airtime? What do you say to people who talk about that?
Look, I mean, maybe in the beginning you can, I'd say don't personalize it. Pay careful attention to it. But people will personalize their results, or they'll, someone else's opinion of them, they'll take it, to heart. And I'm not saying ignore like facts or ignore certain things that you should be aware of, or things that you need to avoid, or things you need to take precautionary measures regarding. I'm not saying ignore it, but if it's an internal voice about yourself, and you're never going to do this, that sort of thing, that is basically a voice in your head that's beating you up, that's telling you you are no good, you're not going to amount. Don't take that seriously. Like, I would literally, in the beginning, on your journey to upgrading your self-image, talk to the voice. Like, say, that's interesting. You see me like, I don't see myself like that. I mean, but you've also got to get involved in the right information. You got to get around the right people, because here's the thing. You were created in God's image. You literally were. And that's the concept you should have of yourself. Like, there's something so powerful in each and every one of us, right, Emma? Why would we have this small idea of ourselves? I mean, you've got massive creative potential. Massive. Everything in this world was created by the human species in terms of air travel, conquering the sea, conquering the air. All technological advancements was created in the imagination, was created using these creative faculties. God was the creator. We were created in his image. You've got creative faculties. There's something so powerful about you. Why would you think less of yourself, or have the small idea, the small image of yourself, when there's so much more about you than, my mentor, Bob Proctor? I mean, you've been into his work now for many years, Emma. He had been studying these ideas for 61 years. And after 6 decades of in-depth study, and having a company that operated in over 100 different countries, millions and millions of dollars in his lifetime, he said he was only scratching the surface of his potential, because he said, we've got infinite potential. You've got all these deep reservoirs that you can bring to the surface. And, that's the true essence of who you are. Why would you have a small idea about yourself? But you see, that's why you got to get around the right ideas, the right people who can just kind of remind you of who you truly are.
Yeah, that's yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think it's so key, isn't it? Talking about your environment and who you share time with and things like that. I have sort of come across recently. I suppose, you know, being in the property game, you get a lot of people coming in who are kind of middle-aged, I suppose, and I fear that I'm probably near that stage. Maybe I'm in it, but and what you can hear is, you know, they may have been successful in whatever or done whatever, but you know, now it's the time where they sort of feel that, you know, property is for them. And you know, generally it starts like all these things like we've been talking about, really gung-ho, and then the doubt slips in, and there's a few people that have sort of said, you know, I'm just not clever enough, or I'm just not able, or you know, that they've got all of that intellect, I don't have that. And even though they may see other people, I'm always I find it quite interesting, because we have a lot of what do you call it, real life programs, you know, following people's real lives, and some of them, in fairness, don't seem that clever in our sort of classic role of you know, academia. They really don't seem that clever, but my goodness, are they getting a huge amount of success and whatever you see, but financial success. And it's kind of like, well, those people clearly haven't got that academia, haven't got that, so why would it be any different for them? I mean, do you feel that it's something that you just spoken about, and that's just so powerful, that everyone is an image of a greater being, so to speak, and we've all got these incredible minds and these brains, but it would seem that potentially these people are just not seeing that they can be clever in whatever that looks like or whatever. What would you kind of say to those people who just have this, I know it's just another thing, but this kind of constant doubt that, yeah, that's all very well you saying that, Lee, but I'm just not clever. I don't have the capabilities to be able to get to that stage.
So here's the thing. And here you got to really look at the belief system. People think you need to be clever, or you need to have degrees coming off your resume to achieve great results, because we've been sold beliefs. You probably heard this growing up, that if you're going to make a lot of money, you've got to be really smart. Or if you're going to do well in business, you've got to have an MBA, you've got to have a good formal education. And people go and they get these degrees, and some of them thereafter cannot find work. They struggle in finances, they struggle in their relationships, their health, and the results on the outside would not demonstrate that they've got all of that knowledge. Now, we were sold another belief that was literally a lie, that knowledge is power. Knowledge is no such thing. It's the application of knowledge. I mean, think of this, right, Emma? You went to school, you piled a ton of information up, but probably 95% of that you don't use today. Because the thing is, you can gather all the knowledge in the world, if it's not carefully packaged and intelligently directed to a specific end. So in other words, if you don't get the information on your property journey, you carefully package it, the strategies, whatever, and you then intelligently direct it to your specific end, to the goal, the star you're shooting at, nothing's going to happen. You can have all the information. I mean, our libraries are filled with volumes, millions of books. You know, you got to take it and intelligently direct it. So the people who are getting these great results, who you mentioned, and they don't have all the knowledge, right? They don't have all the intellect or the smarts. You don't see them that way. What they do have is their paradigm, their image in their subconscious mind, which was created in their little life, which was created genetically, programmed in by the teachers, the parents. They've got a healthy image of themselves. Their habits are really good, because the thing is, it's not knowledge that translates into results. It's behavior. Behavior is the key. We're not going to change anything in terms of our income until we change our daily habits. You want to look at your success, whether you're a success or failure, look at your daily habits. It tells a story to a T. and the results always tell the truth, Emma. Like the results tell you exactly what's happening inside. I mean, how could anybody ever, so many people know how to get healthier. They work out this great gym routine. They know the right foods to eat. They know they got to have 4 liters of water. They know all of that. But that does not necessarily mean they're going to do it, because the paradigm, the self-image in the subconscious, that runs the show. It literally runs the show.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you've talked about this being a kind of an easy process to, change, from what I'm understanding, this kind of inner person, this inner image. And I've certainly, one of the things I've sort of learned from you, actually, just to go back on that, is that there literally has to be a change. And I kind of, when this concept sort of first started mulling around, because I've needed a lot of help with this along the way, is that, we talked about there needing to be a change, and that's really evolved over time, sort of understanding what that is. So I remember walking initially into my first property viewings and literally just thinking, what am I doing here? This is just crazy. And now when I'm talking to people, like I'm just negotiating at the moment a really substantial deal. It will be up there with, the biggest one I've done. And it's so interesting how different it is. But I've literally physically changed. I mean, you've seen me over the years, Lee, and just the way I walk, even certainly the way I talk. There are moments of thinking that I do have to check myself, but when I'm actually thinking about it and going through this process in this negotiation, one of the things you've mentioned is this belief. So I just have this belief that it will go ahead, and this has been going on for a very long time. But when things have cropped up, whereas before I would have just blamed everything, this time my actions have been very, very different. I've literally, I just kind of, like, I went to a networking meeting the other day, and that particular day they'd come back saying, oh, we're not going to, these are all specific terms, but we're not going to allow you to sign this property. And that's a bit annoying, because we really need it to get it over the line. And then there was a couple of other things that, the agent was saying, the vendor really doesn't want this. And all I just kept thinking was, well, we've got to get these things over the line. And actually, they're really positive for the vendor. They just don't understand them. So what can I do? And then serendipitously that evening, I went to a networking event, and there was a couple of solicitors, conveyancing solicitors, property solicitors up there. And it was like, they were all introducing themselves. And the lady had said, yes, there's some Q&A. We'll do that afterwards. Anyway, it got to the end, and she clearly wasn't doing the Q&A. So I'm thinking, can't miss out on this. I'm immediately hand up saying, can we have the Q&A? And she's like, oh, yeah. So I'm asking you all these questions. And I was literally the only one asking questions. But I didn't have any kind of feeling of thinking, oh, nobody else is doing this. I just had this absolute inner belief that I was going to get this result. And it kind of, looking back on it, that's how it came about. I was kind of like vibing. But, 3 years ago, I just would have hidden away and not done that. So it's kind of like, I don't know where I'm slightly going here, but, I really feel that there have been these momentous actual physical changes in what I do, and how, and how I relate to things, and how I do these things. So, yeah, that kind of came out of there. But
I mean, that it's always interesting to look back at where you were 3 years ago, right? Because that tells you where the self-image, where the internal mechanism was. So, good on you, Emma, for putting in the work, for putting in the work to upgrade your self-image. And, it's something anybody can do. It's something like, why should you be intimidated to put your hand up and ask a question in a room with 100 people with someone on? Why should you be intimidated? I mean, think about it. It's clearly the person who thinks that way sees themselves in an inferior manner. Like, am I going to say the right thing? Is my question going to seem smart? I don't see myself smart, whatever the world, and whatever it is. So you've got this internal dialogue that's literally speaking you out of, and that answer might change the trajectory of your business, right? So, good on you. It just proves that all the work you've been doing and how you've shown up. I mean, from the first time I met you, you are showing up way differently. And I'm sure you'd say the same about me in terms of the very first meeting that you and I had, to compare to where we are today.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's that internal mechanism. And if you're listening to this, I'll also go one step further and I'll say, Emma, even though whoever's listening to this online, even though your image has been upgraded over the past 3 years, it can always get better, right? Because there's always a higher level. Bob Proctor, very humble man, and it came through in the things he used to say. He said, we've never quite got it. We're always reaching for it. So personal development, this upgrading of your mindset, to become more and more and more of who you truly are, it's a continuous lifetime journey. Personal development has no finish line.
And interestingly, just to finish off that story, it really, the agent was saying things like, this is a deal breaker. These two specific points are deal breakers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of, that felt like quite a brick wall at that stage. I was, and I know all the answers to this, but I just knew that this vendor just did not understand. And so I'm trying to sort of think, and I'm asking these questions, and inherently I knew the answers, but I was, grappling to get more. And it was very interesting. Just a couple of people came up and gave me some other sort of thought processes, and it really allowed me kind of to think about it. And one of the things that they were saying is that this power of fear of this vendor, not knowing that they may end up having to deal with somebody else, and they've built a relationship through the agent with you. And that was kind of the thing. And that was just the one change, I think, that gave me to be able to go back just in an email to say, look, no matter what, you will always be in contact with me. And then, this huge brick wall, just by literally saying one tiny thing, the lady, the agent came back and said, oh yes, the vendor's really happy with all of that. And I hadn't really said anything different. It was pretty much the same dialogue, the same information, but there must have been just something little in the vendor and something that what I said, and this belief that it was for the good. There was nothing, this was all positive on both sides. That's why I was really pushing the point, because if we'd have rolled over, that would have actually been a real win-lose scenario. It would have been made no difference to her, but it would have really lost for us. So that wouldn't have been positive. So I had just this real belief in pushing forward with that. So yeah, quite interesting. So Lee, let's get into the real sort of, nooks and crannies of this. How do we then? So we've touched on some really big, powerful concepts and some words. So we've touched on your self-image. We've touched on belief. We've touched on paradigms. You've also touched on environment and association. So these are all really huge things. So what can we do then? What are the steps? What would be, for instance, the first step to take in this journey to, improve our self-image?
So Emma, the first step would be, okay, firstly, you've got to have a goal. You have to have a clearly defined goal. Now, I'd imagine if you, in the property business, you probably have a goal, whether it's how many properties you'd like in your portfolio, the amount of income you'd like to derive passively from your portfolio, whatever your goal is, you've got to have a clearly defined goal. That's the starting point. Napoleon Hill was one of the greatest success teachers of all time. He said that the goal or desire is the starting point of all achievement. So you got to have a goal, right? You got to know where you're going, firstly. So let's say you've got a goal. Then to upgrade your internal mechanism, your self-image, you take a pen and a notepad. So simple. Remember I said this is simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. Take a pen and a notepad and you start writing out by saying, I am so happy and grateful now that. And then you write an image script of the person who has already accomplished your goal. So let's say that property investor is earning £25,000 from their property portfolio, or 15,000, whatever the number is. Who is that man or woman? How do they walk? How do they talk? How do they dress? How do they meet and greet people? What sort of effect do they have on people when they just have a conversation? How confident are they in the front of a room, sharing a property journey at that networking event with 200 people? How confident are they? Who is that man or woman? Where do they shop? Do they spend Fridays? Do they not work on Fridays? Spend it at the country club, playing golf, and then at the country club? What does that person's life look like? How often do they travel? How do they travel? Do they travel first class, business, 5-star accommodation? What's their experience? Like, really, I want you to consider it this way. It's as if you are the screenwriter. You're the writer of this movie, and the movie is your life, and you want to write that script out. We call it a self-image script. You want to write it out in the present tense, in a lot of detail. I mean, my script, I think, is 5 pages long. My script is 5 pages long. You want to write it out in a lot of detail, and you want to be very specific, so it creates a clear image of that man or woman. And once you've got that, and look, you can, I suggest to my clients that they, if they've got a free Sunday morning or a free Saturday morning, that they, run a nice bubble bath, nice warm bath, sit in there, really relax for half an hour, whatever, play some calming music, maybe some classical music, get out, grab a notepad and a pen in a very calm state, and really go to their imagination and, who is that man or woman who has accomplished my goal? And you're the producer, you're the writer, you're the financier, it's your movie. Your movie is your life. And you create that image script of that person. Got to be in the present tense. I know I'm harping on it, but it's very important, because if it's in the future, mentally, the subconscious doesn't know the difference between now or I mean, it only once works in the now. So the thing is, you got to see yourself now. I don't know, I'm waffling a bit there, Emma, but you don't want the subconscious. You can't tell the subconscious, one day I'm going to be earning this amount, because it will always be one day. It will always be in the future. It's got to be written in the present tense. And what you then do, maybe for 2 weeks or so, rewrite that image script every day, and as you rewrite it, becomes clearer. You add more detail. You might take some things out, you might add some things, but keep working on it. And when you're happy with the image script, and it could be 1 page, it could be 3 pages, it could be 2 pages, however long it is, when you're happy with it, record it onto your phone, record it in your voice, add some music, listen to it when you're in the gym, listen to it when you're having your afternoon nap. Constantly be playing this movie, this idea of yourself operating at that level. And I promise you, with repetition, eventually it's going to lodge in your subconscious mind. And when that happens, everything on the outside starts shifting. So there's some work required to get it done, but it's simple. Like, the process to upgrade your self-image is really simple.
Yeah, I mean, that is incredibly powerful. And as you say, we can listen to about it, but you've actually got to go and do it. And it's not a challenge. It's not difficult. And one of the things that from you, I really heard, and it is certainly through Bob and all of these kind of things, is you need to be the lead character in this play. And I think that was something that I really had to consider a lot, is that quite often it seems that other people seem to be maybe the lead character in your play, and you'll hear, we might hear blame, or we might hear everyone else is this, but why would you have a life, because it's your life or my life, why wouldn't we be the lead character in our own lives? So it's really considering yourself. And that was quite a big shift for me, is I hadn't even considered this lead character, non-lead character. I mean, it was, you know, it's all terribly new. But to be that person who, you know, has control of your life, and how do they look and how do they feel? And one of the big things that you instilled into me, because I'm very logical, and, you know, you tell me to do something, I'll do it, but it will be quite robotic.
Mm.
You know, I know you've told me in the past to write things out, and I've done it inherently very robotically. Whereas what you've instilled, and it's something that again I really work on, is to have this this emotion added into it. So yesterday was a classic example. I got up not relatively early. I did my property work in the morning, and a lot of it actually yesterday was all around marketing. And so I did just a load of marketing. And then Rosabella, it's the kids' half term. So we went off to this like fun park, and it had zoos and all of those things. It was the most incredible day. In the UK, the weather is generally pretty bad. You've probably heard. Honestly, yesterday, it was like a summer's day. So it was an outside park. Sun was shining. We had a picnic outside. I mean, we had a coat on, but there were times when she was taking her coat off. And there were moments when I kind of thought, oh, what should I be doing? But then I just literally was there, really feeling that amazing emotion of how lovely it was to spend that time there, and how amazing it was. And I got out my book, when she went off on these big play things that are just for the kids, I get out my book every now and again, and I just write down those things that I was really grateful for, to try and even now talking about it, I've got like a real feeling in my stomach. And that's what you kind of have taught me, is when I'm going through these things, rather than just writing down my gratitude, or rather than just writing down an image script or thinking about this, is to add this kind of huge emotion to enable you. And I love this is a thing that you've really helped me with. And when I mentor people, and the first thing we start with is, what's your goal? How does it make you feel? Mm-hmm. Because exactly as you said, you can have this goal, you can have this image, but unless you really feel it, I mean, God, my stomach is literally it's flipping and jumping now because I've got this kind of emotion. It was just such an amazing thing to have that yesterday. I just feel so fortunate to, and in a minute we're going off again to do a pony thing, but and I love this whole being able to work and have life quite interlinked, and that makes me feel really good. Whereas in the past, and it still crops up, but in the past it's made me feel guilty that I would be thinking of doing work and have my kids, but actually I really just run them side by side now, and that feels great. So yeah, that kind of was, I just wanted to add in what you have really aided me to see, is this emotional side, because I think a lot of people have that naturally, but me being very logical, it is not a natural thing.
But it's good that you can identify that, right? Because feeling is truly the secret. Like, a lot of people get involved in things intellectually. Like, even if you think of the imagination is probably one of the quickest ways we can get into the emotional mind, because if you can really imagine things like clearly, vividly, it evokes an emotional reaction, But feeling is the secret. I think it was Neville Goddard that said that. When we're operating out of the intellect or the conscious thinking mind, right? If we just involved in the thinking, we're only using 2 to 4% of our power. 2 to 4%, Emma. 96 to 98% of what you do comes from the subconscious mind. 96 to 98% in terms of your behavior, your results, and your perceptions. And we've got to get, like you've experienced, we've got to get involved with the emotion. And I mean, your experience is the same or similar to mine. Coming from the IT industry, very left brain dominated, very logical, analytical, process driven. And the thing is, I mean, that has its place. I'm not saying it's strategy and logical. That doesn't have it. It has its place. But if you really want to move, you got to get involved in the emotion. I mean, think of when you've achieved anything of something that you were really proud of. Even if if it was on the sports field, or maybe you spoke from stage, you went to this emotional place. For those of us that have played sport, we called it being in the zone. Like, you go to this place where it literally feels effortless. You're not thinking about it, you're allowing it, and it's just coming. It's just because when we overthink things, we literally working against ourselves. It's like blah 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 blah. Like, I mean, think of this. At our ages, right, Emma, we know so much, and we read and we study, and you gaining all these strategies, you gaining all of this knowledge, but you seem to be doing less. What we've got to do, and Bob used to say this, we've got to close this knowing doing gap. You've got to take the information that you know, you've got to move it into the doing part of your mind, which is the subconscious, and act on it. And emotion is the great driver. Like emotion, people often go to motivational seminars and they listen to these great speakers, and for a day or two they feel good, they kind of move into action, and here day 3, day 4, boom, Emma, the paradigm comes back in and they go back to the old way of doing things. Now imagine, with the right guidance, if you had the tools to go into your own emotional mind and create that push from the inside, you'll never need a motivational speaker again in your life. And that's what you can do. Truly, that's what you can do. I just also wanted to comment on what you spoke about in terms of seeing yourself not as the star of your own movie. So many people do that, like so many. I know you did, Emma. I mean, you spoke about it. I did for sure. Like, we look at other people and we think they're the stars or they can do that. I can't. Like, when you go and you create your self-image script now, understand this, that you are the star of your movie. Don't make yourself the supporting act. Why would you make yourself the main actor, the main star of your movie? The movie is your life. Yeah. And a good question to ask yourself, like if you're listening to this, you're rewatching this on replay, a good question to ask yourself right now in my life, who is the star of my movie? Good question. Or ask yourself, am I the star or am I in a supporting role?
That is a big one. That is a big one. Right. I'm just aware of time, Lee. So you've spoken about having your goal. You have we've talked about how to write, you just write a self-image script. And then how do we associate with that the self-image script and then the paradigm? And the paradigm, is inherently a whole host of habits, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So with this repetition of, let's say, writing out your self-image script, listening to your self-image script, is that kind of naturally going to start changing those habits? Or would you suggest, let's say, picking on 1 or 2? How would you sort of move that forward so people have a little bit of understanding of that?
So when it comes to realigning or shifting habits, 1 or 2, right? 1 or 2, because if you try and work on too many, not much is going to change. So if let's say it's a habit to train 4 or 5 times a week, or a habit to eat healthy food, work on 1 or 2 at a time. But remember, your self-image script, that's a whole host of different habits, or a whole host of different ideas around the man or woman that's achieving it. So you create the self-image script, you can replay it, close your eyes, visualize it, see yourself living that way, and then work on 1 or 2 habits at a time. But, intentionally only choose 1 or 2. I think that's what but those are 2 kind of different concepts. The one self-image, the one is realigning your habits with who you want to become. Amazing. Does that answer you, Emma?
Yeah, absolutely. And so really, one of the big things, and I know that, Bob spoke about this a lot, is this kind of affirmation and visualization. So is what we're saying here with the self-image script, that the fact that you're kind of repeating this is your self-image script becoming your affirmation, and presumably this whole repetition means that you're kind of sinking it into that subconscious.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're familiar with this book, right? Think and Grow Rich. I think on last month's call we spoke about Think and Grow Rich. For those of you that do not know this, is a personal development classic. It was published in 1937 by Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill studied 500 of the world's most successful people over 25 years, amongst them Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, John D. Rockefeller, Alexander Graham Bell, Woodrow Wilson, who was one of the ex-US presidents, F.W. Woolworth. I mean, just a laundry list of hugely, Andrew Carnegie, who was the richest man in the world at the time. A laundry list of hugely successful movers and shakers of his time. And Emma, in this book, he's got 13 principles of success. And chapter 4 is called autosuggestion. Now, what's autosuggestion? That's the term he uses in this book. It's a suggestion from yourself to yourself. So it's affirmation. It's exactly what you're referring to right now, right, Emma? It's affirmation. It's autosuggestion is saying something to yourself, from yourself to yourself. Now, he says here that autosuggestion is the keystone to the arch of this philosophy. Because if you keep replaying that movie, that self-image script, if you keep affirming things, if you keep saying things to yourself, and in the beginning you might be rewriting, you might be listening to it, and you might think, this is never going to happen. This is never going to happen. But here's the thing. If you keep telling yourself something, if you continue and you stick with it like a dog does with a bone, right? If you stick with it, eventually it's going to happen. He said it's the keystone to the arch of this philosophy. It's how you're going to get real significant shifts. Because once things through the repetition shifts in your subconscious, in your cybernetic mechanism, in your mindset, that's when things on the outside start realigning. It's really important. Like if we want different results, Emma, we have to start affirming the results we want. We have to. That's the only way we're going to shift the ideas that are happening at a deep level.
Amazing. Well, I think we've done a jolly good job in really getting into the bottom of this imposter syndrome that it's called, and giving a really clear path of how you can make those changes. So I really appreciate that. In fact, it's got lots of things going on in my brain and as always, I've written millions of notes as I always do when I have my time with you, Lee. So again, Lee, thank you so much for giving your time here with us. Where can people come and find you, come and, like I've done, get help from you to, if you have got this imposter syndrome, and especially in this property environment, and I know you've worked with a lot of people in property as well, where can they come and find you, and what would you advise them as their next steps?
So Emma, what I do is, if you really want to overcome imposter syndrome, if you've resonated with what we've spoken about today, I'd like to personally invite you to a webinar that I'm running on the 14th of March. The webinar is titled How to Clear the Blocks to Your Abundance. Now, clearly this imposter syndrome, the self-image, the paradigm, the subconscious, how to get in there. This is where your blocks are coming from. So I'm going to show you how this works. I'm going to give you an image of the mind. I'm going to explain how the mind works. So I'm going to go deeper because I'm going to create a lot of imagery where I'm going to explain how to clear the blocks to your abundance. And there's 3 key points that I'll be touching on during the presentation. So it's on the 14th of March, and it's at, I think, 9 a.m. UK, 11 a.m. South Africa, my time. And the three ideas or the three key points. Number one, I'm going to show you what the root cause of your current results are that we've been talking about now, but I'm going to show you with a lot of graphics, and we're really going to get into that. And then I'm going to explain how you change it. Number two, I'm going to introduce you to the three different income earning strategies. There's only three ways income earning strategies, and show you which is the best one to use. And number three is I'm going to give you a strategy to turn your annual income into a monthly income. And those are the three ideas we're going to be covering. It's really going to be a powerful 1 hour together that you don't want to miss, honestly. And I say that humbly, like it's really going to be, we're preparing something so good for you. And, you know, if the ideas Emma and I have shared or spoken about here today, if it's really connected and resonated with you, click on the link. We'll drop the link across all of our channels. I'll in fact drop it as well, Emma. Click on that link, go and register. You know, there's only, I think, 100 seats. Reserve your seat. And I look forward to seeing you online there with us. And I'm pretty sure you're going to be impacted in a way that's going to forever improve things for you.
Wow. Well, what a tremendous offer there. So yeah, go and jump on that. I know Micah is popping all of that into our links. So great. Oh, and that's so lovely to finish off with. Sylvia has said she is loving this. So what better way to end this call? We really appreciate that, Sylvia, and everyone else who's made comments throughout this. We appreciate that too. So thank you so much, Lee. We shall bring this to a close. And for everyone else who follows me, it is my daughter's birthday next Monday, so we are going out and about. So I won't be doing it next week, but I will be back post half term with more exciting people, and yeah, and chatting to Lee next month as well. So thanks again, Lee, and take care, everyone, and see you all very soon.